does this Marvel Star Wars crossover event actually work? Now, I spend a lot of time complaining about entertainment artwork that solves every problem by throwing more and more characters at it. Whether that's too many faces, no hierarchy, just everyone fighting to be important. So, naturally, Marvel and Star Wars have finally announced an official crossover. And the artwork contains what appears to be every character that I owned as an action figure as a child. And annoyingly, kind of think it works. Not because David Marquis somehow found the magical number of characters where Clutter becomes good. It works because this artwork understands something Ensemble Posters constantly get wrong. When everybody is iconic, you can't treat everybody equally. So let's break down how you combine two of the biggest visual universes in pop culture without creating the most expensive Where's Wally Waldo page ever made. Hope Assembles is the first official comic crossover between Star Wars and Marvel. It is a 5-issue limited series written by Kevin Smith with art by David Marquis, beginning in January 2027, as part of the 50th anniversary celebration of A New Hope. A reality-shattering spell brings the Star Wars story into Marvel's Earth 616, putting Luke, Leia, Han and Chewbacca alongside Spider-Man, the Avengers and other Marvel heroes, while Doctor Doom aligns himself with Darth Vader and the Empire. And Marvel is billing the artwork we're looking at as a 5-part connecting cover by David Marquis, which makes the design problem genuinely horrible, because think about what the brief is effectively saying. They're saying, could you put Marvel and Star Wars together? Both franchises need to feel important. We need dozens of recognizable characters. It needs to work as a separate cover section, but also one enormous image. And preferably, don't make Darth Vader look like he accidentally walked into Comic-Con. No pressure at all, right? So the question isn't whether Marquis can draw all these characters, because obviously and clearly he can. The question is, how do you stop two gigantic brands from visually cancelling each other out? So let's start here. We have Luke Skywalker surrounded by characters including Captain America, Spider-Man, the Hulk, and this is where I think Marquis makes the most important decision in the entire piece. He doesn't try to make everybody equally important. Luke is the Star Wars anchor. The Marvel characters surround and support that read. And I know that might sound obvious, but ensemble artwork screws this up constantly. If Spider-Man is screaming for your attention, Captain America is screaming, the Hulk is screaming, even Luke is screaming, and then somebody puts a giant logo over the top of it, and that's screaming as well. The viewer's eyes basically files a noise complaint and just leaves. Hierarchy requires inequality. Someone has to win, and someone has to come second. Someone has to be allowed to sit quietly in the background and accept that today just simply isn't their day. Now, what makes this work is that the recognizable silhouettes of each character do a huge amount of the communication. Luke gives us the lightsaber and the light clothing, Captain America gives us the circular shield, and Spider-Man gives us those red and blue limbs with a web pattern, and Hulk is essentially a large green wall with anger issues. You do not need every character presented like a passport photograph, because the design language is already doing the identification. That allows Marquis to overlap figures without losing them, and this becomes important as the artwork gets increasingly more ridiculous. And then we get to this section with Darth Vader, Doctor Doom, Thanos, Ultron, which is an absolutely terrible room to accidentally walk into. But visually, this pairing immediately kind of makes sense, and that reveals the second solution. Marquis is not organising the crossover purely by franchise. He is organising it by visual and narrative relationships. Vader beside Doctor Doom feels natural because both characters share similar visual ingredients. They both wear armor, they both have masks, they both have flowing capes, they have strong authority, huge silhouettes, absolutely catastrophic workplace cultures. Even before we know exactly what their relationship will be in the story, the artwork tells us that these just belong together, and that is much smarter than simply putting Marvel characters on the left and Star Wars characters on the right, like they're preparing for a school sports day. The crossover starts becoming believable when the composition creates relationships between these characters, and that is a useful lesson for any artist designing an ensemble piece. So don't just ask yourself, where can I fit this person? Ask, who should this person visually interact with? Because proximity creates meaning. Put Vader beside Luke and we read that they have a history. Put Vader beside Doom and suddenly we read a comparison. Two completely different franchises start communicating through a shared shape language. And this may be the most difficult part. The full artwork is designed as 5 connected sections. Across them, Marquis groups Han Solo and Chewbacca with Wolverine, Professor X, and and the Guardians of the Galaxy, Leia, R2-D2 and C-3PO appear with characters including Black Widow, Black Panther, and Obi-Wan ends up alongside Deadpool, Daredevil, Hawkeye and the Human Torch. That last group sounds less like a superhero team and more like somebody clicked randomize on a character selection screen. But there is a clever structural idea running through all 5 of these. Each one has a recognizable Star Wars anchor. We have Luke, Vader, Han and Chewie, Leia and the droids, Obi-Wan, and then Marvel characters build around them. So when the pieces join together, the Marvel universe starts to almost invade the familiar Star Wars imagery. That makes the entire thing feel like one enormous celebration rather than 5 unrelated variants. But here is where I do have one criticism. I think the complete artwork is stronger than some of the individual sections, and that is probably inevitable. When you split one panoramic composition into separate covers, certain sections are going to inherit stronger focal points than the others. Luke with Captain America and Spider-Man immediately feels like an event. Vader beside Doom is almost unfairly easy to sell. Some of the other groups are more dependent on the sheer novelty of it. I mean, look who's standing next to who. And that leads into the biggest question I had when I first saw this. Because I know I have criticised plenty of comic and movie artwork for basically functioning as a character checklist. And this is absolutely loaded with characters. So why am I letting this one get away with it? Because here, the crossover itself is the visual concept. That changes everything. If I'm looking at a normal Spider-Man story showing me 30 Marvel characters, it tells me very little about Spider-Man's story. But Hope Assembles is being sold as one promise. Characters who should never occupy the same universe are finally occupying the same image. That spectacle is the collision. Luke beside Captain America is the idea. Vader beside Doom is the idea. And Chewbacca beside Wolverine is the idea. Frankly, I'm amazed neither of them are already arguing. So what would normally feel like a marketing clutter becomes narrative evidence. The cover is proving the premise. The distinction matters. And more characters are not automatically bad. More information is not automatically bad either. The problem begins when the information does not reinforce one clear idea. And I think this is where the artwork kind of succeeds the most. Star Wars does not disappear inside Marvel. And Marvel doesn't feel like it was simply been pasted into a Star Wars poster. Marquise translates everybody through one consistent drawing language, and that is essential. Spider-Man still reads as Spider-Man, and Luke still reads as Luke. And Darth Vader still has the imposing geometry that makes Vader work, but nobody looks like they've been copied from completely different pieces of promotional artwork and assembled afterwards. They inhabit the same illustration. That creates cohesion. And for artists, this is the largest lesson of all. When you combine visually incomparable subjects, you need something above them that creates consistency. It could be the same lighting, the same rendering, the same perspective, the same color treatment, the same line language. Something needs to tell the viewer these things now belong in the same world. Otherwise, you haven't created a crossover, you've created just a collage. So does Marvel and Star Wars artwork actually work? I think it does. Not perfectly. Some individual sections are stronger than others, and the full connecting image is probably more impressive than any piece separated from the group. But considering the brief, this could have been an absolute visual disaster. Instead, Marquise solves the biggest problem by refusing to treat every character fairly. He creates anchors, he groups characters through relationships. He uses recognizable silhouettes instead of forcing every face into the foreground. And most importantly, he understands that the sheer number of characters only works because the collision itself is the story. That is the difference between complexity and clutter. Complexity has structure. Clutter just has stuff. And if you remember one thing from this artwork, make it this. You do not create hierarchy by making everything important. You create hierarchy by deciding what matters first. I'm genuinely fascinated to see what David Marquise does with the actual series, because drawing one enormous crossover image is difficult enough. Storytelling with this many completely different characters is another problem entirely. This Star Wars Marvel Hope Assembles series begins in January 2027 with 5-issue series running through to May. Now, if you enjoy these professional breakdowns of comic art, character design and entertainment artwork, subscribe because there are plenty more coming. And tell me in the comments, which Marvel and Star Wars character pairing do you most want to see? And if you are an artist trying to improve your work while building a professional creative career, my book, The Profitable Artist, covers portfolios, pricing, positioning, and getting better clients. And the link to that is in the description below. And as always, thank you for watching.